You're our lawyer. Just sign where we highlighted. My mother didn't say hello. She didn't offer me coffee. She set a manila folder on the kitchen table, tapped it twice with 2 fingers, and sat down like she had already won. I had driven 4 hours from Columbus to my parents' house in Dayton on a Tuesday afternoon because my father's text said family emergency. Those 2 words had been working on me since I was 7 years old. They were a fishhook and I was the fish who never learned. I was 31. I had my own firm. 12 attorneys, 2 paralegals, and a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows on the 14th floor of the Bricker Building in downtown Columbus. I had billed $1.4 million in client fees the previous year. I had argued before the Ohio Court of Appeals 4 times and won 3 of them. I had done all of this while paying off $87,000 in law school debt, while sending my parents money when the furnace broke and when my father's truck needed a new transmission and when Derek's first business failed and my mother called crying and said she didn't know what they were going to do. And I was sitting at my parents' kitchen table, looking at a folder my mother had already highlighted in yellow, because the word emergency still made my hands go cold. My brother Derek sat across from me. He was 34. He had the particular stillness of someone who has already been told what is going to happen and has decided it is fine. He was looking at the placemat in front of him like it was the most interesting thing in the room. I opened the folder. The document was 22 pages. My name was on page 1. Not as the drafting attorney. As the guarantor. I kept my face completely still and turned to page 2. The kitchen smelled like the same dryer sheet my mother had used my entire childhood. Lavender. Used to mean safety. Dinner on the stove, homework on the table, the particular warmth of a house that held you. Now it made my jaw tighten in a way I had to consciously release. Derek's business has a cash flow problem, my father said from near the refrigerator, arms crossed. This was his version of presenting an argument, standing at a slight distance from the thing he wanted you to agree to, as though the physical space made it more neutral. The bank turned him down. He needs a private lender. The lender needs a guarantor with real assets. How much? I said. My mother said, $640,000. Quickly. Like the number was better if it left her mouth fast. I turned pages without responding. The loan was through Meridian Capital Partners, a private lending firm based in Cincinnati. Interest rate, 14.7%. Term, 18 months with a balloon payment at maturity. Collateral listed. Personal guarantee of Elena Vasquez Holt, attorney at law, Ohio Bar License Number 0084217, Columbus, Ohio. My license number. My full legal name. Printed cleanly on a document I had never seen before today, prepared by someone I had never spoken to for a loan I had not been consulted about, to cover a debt my brother had generated over 3 years of decisions I had watched him make from a careful distance. When was this drafted? I said. 2 weeks ago, Derek said. First words he had spoken since I arrived. By whom? Boz. My mother glanced at my father. A retired attorney, my father said. Friend of a friend. He does this kind of work sometimes. I turned to page 14. The signature block. My name was typed beneath a blank line in Times New Roman 12-point font. Clean. Professional. Waiting. I closed the folder. I need to use the bathroom, I said. No one said anything. I pushed my chair back and walked upstairs. The bathroom tile was cold through my slacks. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and looked at the faucet. It was still dripping. The same faucet I had fixed when I was 16 with a washer I bought from a hardware store with my own babysitting money. Apparently no one had fixed it since. The sound of it, that small, patient drip once every 4 seconds, was the most honest thing in the house. I need to tell you something I have never said out loud to anyone. I almost signed it. Not because I believed in Derek's business. His landscaping company had been losing money for 3 years. He had twice been investigated by the Ohio Department of Commerce for misclassifying workers as independent contractors. He owed $214,000 to vendors, had maxed a $40,000 line of credit with First Federal Bank the previous November, and had not filed a complete tax return since 2021. I knew this because I had looked him up 2 years earlier after the last family emergency and I had kept the file. I almost signed it not because of Derek. I almost signed it because of my mother's face. She had looked at me with an expression I had been seeing my entire life. A specific combination of exhaustion and expectation that said this is what good daughters do, This is what people who love their families do. This is the proof we have been waiting for that you are still ours. 31 years of that expression had trained some reflex in me that moved faster than my legal training. The reflex said, give them what they need. Make the problem smaller. Be the one who fixes it. Come back to the family even if the family is a place that costs you something every time you enter it. I sat on the cold edge of that bathtub and I felt the pull of it. The brief relief that would come from just saying yes. The warmth, however temporary, of being the daughter who came through. The way my mother's face would change. The tension releasing, replaced by something that looked enough like love that I had spent 3 decades accepting it as the real thing. Then I thought about what my license number meant. It was not a number. It was 11 years. It was undergraduate loans and law school loans and the bar exam I took twice because I failed it the first time by 4 points and sat in my car in the parking lot of the testing center and cried until I couldn't breathe and then drove home and opened my books again. It was every morning I billed before 7 a.m. and every client I kept when competing firms tried to poach them and every Saturday I spent in the office while other people were somewhere else. It was the $380,000 I had built in retirement and savings and equity dollar by dollar, while Derek was asking our parents for money and they were saying yes and then looking at me with that expression that meant see how difficult this is. If Derek defaulted, and Derek would default, I knew it the way I knew the faucet would keep dripping. Meridian Capital Partners could pursue me personally. Not my firm. Me. My accounts, my condo, my retirement. Everything I had built while being the family's emergency fund. I took out my phone and texted my paralegal. Tracy. I need a UCC search on Meridian Capital Partners, Cincinnati. Also Ohio bar complaint history on a retired attorney. I'll get you the name in 10 minutes. Need everything you can find. 2 hours. The response came in 38 seconds. On it. You okay? I looked at the dripping faucet. Not yet, I wrote. Working on it. I went back downstairs and asked my father for the drafting attorney's name. He hesitated. I told him that I could not execute a personal guarantee without verifying the drafting party, that this was not obstruction, it was basic professional due diligence, and if they were asking me to put my license on $640,000 they could give me a name. His name was Ronald Pitcher. Admitted to the Ohio bar in 1979. Inactive since 2018. I texted Tracy. Dinner happened around me. My mother had made pot roast, which was what she made when she wanted the kitchen to feel like a place where reasonable things occurred, where the smell of braised meat and softened carrots created an atmosphere of normalcy that made requests seem smaller than they were. Derek ate 2 portions and talked about a new HOA contract in Beaver Creek. My father talked about the interest rate being manageable if the business stabilized. My mother refilled everyone's water glass twice. I ate and kept my phone face down on the table and said very little. Before I went back downstairs, I had photographed every page of that document in the upstairs bathroom. 22 pages. Standing over the sink with the door locked, the flash of my phone camera lighting the room in short white bursts. At 9:47 p.m. Tracy called. I excused myself to the back porch. March in Dayton. Wet mulch and old concrete and a cold that had teeth. A plastic bag was caught on the neighbor's fence post, inflating and deflating in the wind like something trying to breathe. Elena, Tracy said. Meridian Capital has 3 active UCC filings in Hamilton County, all in default. One of them is a landscaping company. Different name than your brother's but same structure. Personal guarantee 18-month term 14.7% interest. Same Ronald Pitcher on the drafting line. Bar complaint. 2019. He was representing a borrower and disclosed confidential financial information directly to the lender. Bar found probable cause. He settled, paid a fine, kept his inactive status. The complaint is public record. She paused. That's not the main thing. Tell me. The document you sent me is 22 pages. But only 19 of them match Meridian's standard guarantee template from their 2022 public filings. Pages 8, 13, and 17 are non-standard. She read from her notes with the flat precision she used when information was bad. Page 8 adds a clause extending the guarantee to cover Meridian's legal fees and collection costs with no cap. Page 13 transfers right of first refusal on any professional license held by the guarantor to Meridian in the event of default, meaning if Derek can't pay, they can take action against your license. Page 17 authorizes Meridian to contact the Ohio Supreme Court's Board of Professional Conduct directly, in your name on their behalf. The plastic bag inflated. Deflated. They weren't going after my money, I said. Not primarily, Tracy said. They were going after your license. A suspended attorney can't earn. A suspended attorney can't pay. But a suspended attorney has a recoverable asset, her professional standing, that a lender with the right document can leverage indefinitely. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood on my parents' back porch and I felt something in my chest perform a long, cold calculation that arrived at a number I recognized immediately. How many other attorneys have they done this to? I said. I'm already looking, Tracy said. I'll have names by morning. Before I tell you what happened when I went back inside that kitchen, I want to ask you something. If you have ever been the one your family calls, the one who fixes things, the one who answers, the one whose name gets written on documents without your knowledge, I want you to leave a comment and tell me. Because you need to know you are not alone in this. I'm reading every single one. I went back inside. The pot roast smell had thickened into something heavier. Grease and warmth and 30 years of being handed things that were too heavy and being told it was love. I set the folder on the kitchen table. I'm not going to sign this, I said. My mother turned from the sink. Her hands were still wet from washing the pot roast pan. She held them slightly away from her body, dripping onto the floor. Elena. Her voice had the particular flatness of a prepared sentence. Your brother needs this. He has a real opportunity and he just needs a bridge to get through the next 18 months. The bridge has a trapdoor, I said. Pages 8, 13 and 17. What are you talking about? Sit down, I said. All three of you. My father came from the living room. Derek put his phone on the table. My mother dried her hands slowly on a dish towel and sat down, and the kitchen was very quiet except for the refrigerator and the sound of the house settling. I had spent 11 years learning to speak in courtrooms. Learning to make my voice carry without volume. To let the weight of what I was about to say arrive in the room before the words did. This document, as written, would allow Meridian Capital Partners to pursue suspension of my Ohio law license as a collection mechanism in the event of Derek's default, I said. Not my default. Derek's. They inserted 3 non-standard clauses, prepared by Ronald Pitcher, who has an active bar complaint for disclosing client information to lenders, specifically to leverage a licensed professional's credentials as collateral. I am not a co-borrower in this arrangement. I am the product they are selling. My father's face moved through 4 expressions. The last one was something I had not seen before. It was not anger. It was not defensiveness. It was something lower than those things. Something that looked for the first time in my memory like genuine shame. We didn't know about those clauses, he said. Tell me exactly how this was arranged, I said. From the beginning. The silence stretched. The refrigerator clicked off. My mother spoke first. Derek found Meridian. He brought us the paperwork 2 weeks ago. He said you would understand because it was family. He said you had the assets and you wouldn't even feel it. I looked at my brother. Derek's jaw moved. He looked at the table. I needed a guarantor with a clean credit profile and real assets. You have both. I thought. Did you know about pages 8, 13 and 17? He did not answer. Which was its own answer. You have a landscaping company with $214,000 in outstanding invoices, I said. 2 employees in a classification dispute with the state. A maxed credit line. And you were going to hand my professional license to a private lender in Cincinnati as leverage. I said it without heat. Factually. The way I would read a finding of fact into a court record. Not because you thought I wouldn't notice. Because you thought I would sign before I read. We raced you, my mother said. Her voice broke on it, jagged and raw. We paid for school. We gave you everything we had when you were starting out. Are you really going to sit here and tell us that a piece of paper matters more than this family? You paid for my first year of undergrad, I said. I took out $87,000 in loans for the rest. I repaid them in 6 years. You know this. I showed you the payoff letter because you asked to see it. That's not what I meant and you know it. I know what you meant, I said. You meant that I owe you something that has no ceiling and no documentation and no clause on page 17. You meant that family loyalty is a debt that I am always behind on no matter what I pay. I paused. I love you. I want that on record. I love both of you and this is the hardest thing I have said in a room in 11 years of saying hard things in rooms. But I will not sign this document. And if Meridian contacts me again, I will be responding in my professional capacity. My father put his face in his hands. My mother said, "You always made us feel like we weren't enough." I let that sentence sit in the air between us. Some sentences don't deserve a response. They deserve the full weight of silence, which is its own kind of verdict. I picked up the folder. I said goodnight. I walked out the front door at 11:08 p.m. and I did not look back at the house. I drove back to Columbus on an empty highway. The radio played something I didn't hear. I was running through the sequence of what needed to happen. The order of filings, the language of the certified letter, the specific provisions of Ohio Revised Code 4705 that Pitcher had likely violated. I was doing this because it was what I knew how to do, and because thinking about the legal strategy was easier than thinking about my mother's face when I walked out. I gave myself the 45 minutes between Dayton and Columbus to feel it. The grief of it. The specific exhaustion of loving people who have spent 30 years treating you as a resource rather than a person. The knowledge that I was going to wake up the next morning and do what needed to be done and that doing it correctly would not make it feel clean. I let myself feel all of it until I crossed the I-270 interchange and saw the lights of Columbus spread out flat and steady in the dark. Then I dried my face and drove to my office. Tracy had found 2 other Ohio attorneys approached by Meridian through the same referral chain. One had not signed. One had. Her name was Dominique Ferris. 34 years old. Family law practice in Akron. She had signed her document 9 months ago, also through Pitcher, also through a family member's borrowing, and was now in the middle of a board of professional conduct proceeding that was threatening her license. She had not understood what she signed. She had trusted that her family wouldn't bring her something dangerous. I called her on a Thursday morning. She answered on the second ring, and when I told her who I was and what I had found, she went quiet for a long moment and then she said, "I thought I was the only one," and the relief in her voice was the kind that comes from putting down something very heavy. We spent 2 hours on the phone. I told her about pages 8, 13, and 17. She pulled her own document and found the same clauses, worded slightly differently but legally identical in effect. We compared notes on Pitcher. We compared notes on Meridian's communication patterns. By the end of the call, we had agreed to file a joint complaint with the Ohio Bar Association's Disciplinary Council and a coordinated referral to the Ohio Attorney General's Consumer Protection Section. Tracy prepared the filings. I reviewed them 3 times each. We submitted on a Friday afternoon and I went home and made dinner and sat at my kitchen table in the quiet of my own apartment and ate it without anyone asking me for anything, and it tasted like the first honest meal I had eaten in a long time. I have not spoken to Derek since March. My mother called twice in April. I let both calls go to voicemail and listened to the messages once each, sitting at my kitchen counter with coffee that had gone cold. She said I had hurt her. She said family doesn't keep score. She said she didn't raise me to be cold. I listened to both messages the way I listen to closing arguments that I'm preparing to respond to, carefully, completely without flinching. I did not call back. My father sent a card. No letter. Just a card with a small painting of a cardinal on the front, and on the inside in his handwriting. I should have read it. I'm sorry. He signed it with his first name, not Dad. That choice told me something about where he understood himself to be standing. I keep the card in my desk drawer. I have not responded. I'm not sure yet whether I will. The Ohio Bar Association opened a formal investigation into Ronald Pitcher and 2 attorneys in his referral network in May. The Attorney General sent Meridian Capital a civil investigative demand in June. Dominique Ferris's board proceeding was stayed pending the investigation's outcome. She called me when she got the notice. She was crying again, but differently this time. That is the part of this story I hold on to. Not the filing, not the certified letter, not the look on my father's face. The sound of Dominique Ferris's voice when she understood that what had happened to her was going to matter. That it was going to change something for someone who hadn't been harmed yet. 3 things I know now that I wish someone had told me earlier. First, the word family is not a contract. It is a word people use when they want you to skip the contract. Anytime someone hands you something highlighted and asks you to sign without reading, the highlighting is not a courtesy. It is a direction to look away. Second, the most dangerous documents are the ones prepared by people who are counting on your trust. Ronald Pitcher did not succeed because he was a skilled attorney. He succeeded because the people who brought his documents to their family members knew that family members sign things they wouldn't sign for strangers. That is not love. That is a vulnerability being used as a mechanism. Third, your credentials are not a family asset. They are the record of choices you made alone at night for years while other people were elsewhere. They belong to no one but you. Anyone who presents them as collateral without your knowledge is not asking for your help. They're taking something. I am in my office now. It is a Tuesday in late spring. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 14th floor, I can see the Scioto River catching the morning light, and the courthouse dome, and the particular pale blue of the Ohio sky when the weather is finally deciding to be good. Tracy brought me coffee without being asked. The file on Meridian Capital sits on the corner of my desk, 3 inches thick and still growing. I did not ruin my family. I stopped saving the parts of it that were already burning. There is a difference, and I spent a long time learning to see it. Have you ever been handed something and asked to sign before you read it? By a lender, a landlord, a family member, anyone? Tell me in the comments. I am Elena Vasquez Holt. And I finally read the fine print.